It's lucky that you got two ankles because one of them on the most important player in this league is a little bit out of action right now, along with, and a whole other number of things for a lot of guys on this roster. Where do they go next as we get through this gauntlet today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. We're brought to you by Game Time. Check them out, and you can get over there and get what you need. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and it's $20 off your first purchase right there. Purchase is what we're trying to get. Sometimes yesterday there wasn't much purchase. We're going to have to get a grip and more purchase on this whole process. It's grueling. It's grueling for us. It's terrible for the players to get through this gauntlet, but they're going to have to do it, and they might have to do it without Patrick Mahomes. We're going to get into it all today. He's Chris Clark. I'm Ryan Tracy. We're going to have a little step through, a little back and forth about this. You can find Chris at KC Chiefs Corner. You can find me at NFL33.com and RGRfootball.com. Please go check out our other outlets. We would appreciate it very much. Thanks for making us your first listen here on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day, everywhere for free all the time, and we love to do that. We want to make you guys feel special, so join the locals. There are everyday listeners, the supporters of Locked On Chiefs. You can get them at 816-357-8781. We're going to get to this offense. It looked similar, didn't look all that different. Is it the blocking scheme? Is it the blockers? Is it the quarterback? What is going on in this game? But it comes down to QB1, his foot, and a little help in the backfield that isn't going to be there any longer. Patrick Mahomes. I haven't heard from Andy Reid today, and I'm actually kind of twitching a little bit. I like the Monday press conference from the desk, Andy. I'd like a little bit more information. So this is concerning to me because it's a re-aggravation of a high ankle, which I know he's dealt with and he's worked through. We know he knows how to work through it. We know that his staff knows how to work through it. The training staff, Bobby, everybody knows how to handle this, but it's still a concern because I don't know that you can be as magic as you've been in the past, given the way you've been playing this season, if you got a bum foot now too. So I'm more concerned about this injury than any of his injuries before. How about you?
I don't know that I go that far. I think I'm concerned about it. I think it's the other ankle. From what I understand, it's not the same ankle that he has done this to before. It's a different ankle, so that helps a little bit. But I also think that it's more of it is a high ankle sprain, but it doesn't sound like it's a severe high ankle sprain. Like he had a severe high ankle sprain before. This seems like it's more mild from at least what we've been told so far. So I do think that plays into maybe how they're going to do that, how they're going to deal with this, and what they're going to do with it. So I'm going to be curious to see how they go about attacking that in the next week. This brings up a really interesting question, and we're going to talk about Clyde here in just a second, but is it possible that you're seeing a situation where Patrick Mahomes isn't the starting QB on Saturday?
You maybe should. This is a tough one, right? Because it's very frail. You work all season to get to this point. Clearly, he's been underperforming his normal output most of the year, and now you get hit with the injury. That's probably where more of my concern comes in, is because he isn't as far to fall. You know what I mean? Because we're already pushing these tight games and not decimating teams that they should. So that is a concern. I kind of lean towards trying to do everything you can to take care of him. And we will talk about Clyde coming up in a little bit, folks. But it's not just about the guys that are standing in there for Pacheco, for Hunt. It's about everything they had to do to get to this point. And much like DJ Humphries, you wanted to take him out and let him rest. Maybe he could have gone, but you weren't going to push it, right? I don't see any reason to give Patrick Mahomes any less of a warning, of a rest, of a cautious outlook. I would play Carson Wentz at this point.
So I'm of two different thoughts, and they're toying back, they're hitting back and forth right now, and that's really where I am on this. In one sense, I agree with you. Playing Carson Wentz makes a lot of sense. You brought him in here for this specific type of reason. He's going to be going up against the Houston Texans team that you would think that he could possibly go out and get a win. So I agree with you on that. To me, the other side of it, though, is you look at the game that they have after they play the Houston Texans. I think that they can win against the Houston Texans with Patrick Mahomes playing where he has to get the ball out quick type of, offense, and we'll see what happens. But the reason that I think about it that way is if you can go beat Houston, then you're in a situation where you have Pittsburgh coming up in 4 days. Maybe you throw Carson Wentz out there, who is going to be going up against two of the best pass rushers in the NFL, which has been a huge problem for the Chiefs, and you risk him in that game versus trying to get Mahomes back for that one. And then you're in a situation where if you lose against Pittsburgh, you got 10 days before you play the Broncos to end the season.
And that's a fair concern, especially when you think about it doesn't look like the Buffalo Bills are backing off anytime soon, right? They actually just knocked out the Lions over the weekend. So I can't come up with a scenario where it's like, oh, we don't need to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you still want to put your best guy out there. And against TJ Watt, who unfortunately TJ's hurting a little bit as well. So you do have to put some of that in. As I watched through all the reps of Joe Tuney, clearly Myles Garrett wasn't 100%. I thought Joe did a pretty good job. We're going to talk about that coming up. But you got to plan out for that. And maybe you have a point, although I won't put much past Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson as well. Like there are two duos coming for them now where it's not just Myles Garrett and X dude on the other side. It's pairs. And so I don't know. I'd rather be cautious with QB1 and take your lumps. If you were to lose the Texans, maybe that would change some of my outcome. But it feels like unless he's like spry tomorrow, I'm probably taking the cautious road and keeping Patrick out.
And I get that. And I guess really where I'm coming from is it's a question of, do you feel better against the Pittsburgh Steelers or do you feel better against the Houston Texans? To me, I think the easier win is the Houston Texans. They've been inconsistent. Kansas City, obviously, the Texans don't have a great defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers already have a great defense. Mm-hmm. So it's already going to be a tough game in that regard. And you're coming off of a 4-day rest. I mean, you're going to be in a horrible situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At least this one is a lot closer to what you're normally used to. And you can work and do things specifically to try to get Mahomes ready and able to work against Houston and maybe go with a quick up-tempo offense just for that game to try to make it to where he's not having a chance to get hit on a regular basis. And if you do that, then maybe you can knock off the Houston Texans. You understand that you're probably going to lose to Pittsburgh with Wentz, and that's fine because you still have a 1.5 game lead against Buffalo, and then you have to go win against Denver to end the season. But that's a better situation than you lose against Houston, and then you're going up against Pittsburgh where you have to win, and you feel like Mahomes is going to force himself onto the field because he feels like he has to win to try to get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
I'm just back and forth on it.
Yeah. It's a 50-50 proposition, to tell you the truth. It all depends on how he feels and how he plays. And quite frankly, I thought the quick game was, once again, his best outlet yesterday. And that has to be something that evolves quickly. So it's imperative for him to be back on the field too, so he can continue to move forward. What does that have to look like for him? That's coming up next. The atmosphere at Arrowhead is unique. There's nothing like it. Nowhere more in the world that you want to watch a ball game than right there from those seats. Finding those seats is always interesting. It makes it super easy to use Game Time. It's all in pricing, so you never get hit with anything strange. You don't get surprised at checkout. You get to see the view from every seat in the stadium, so you know exactly what that ball game is going to look like when you're sitting there. And they offer the lowest price guarantee. You find it cheaper somewhere else, they'll give you 110% of the difference right there on the spot. All you got to do is get the Game Time app. So go download it, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $20 off of your first purchase. Again, all you got to do is create an account and use the code. It's LOCKEDONNFL, and you get $20 off. Go down that Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you can bet just $5 and you get $150 back in bonus bets if you win right now. FanDuel Sportsbook, the app, gives you everything that you need to get bets in place for the NFL all in one place. So when you got a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, you live by that play-by-play, you can do that and much more on the same page right where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on Locked On Chiefs, folks, and check us out at KC Chiefs Corner and NFL 33 and RGR Football. This comes down to the same question that we've been asking for a bit, and it was all about the blocking, right? We've been concerned about left tackle. It's clear to me a couple of things. One, that despite speculation that Wanya Morris might get back in there, the Chiefs are going with veterans across the board. They're going to go with Joe because Joe's a vet. And I think that means, one, that they felt that they could get through this game and maybe they can get DJ back on the field on Saturday. We'll see how that materializes. But they want vets out there. It was Ferkser, not Cup, that came up. And I thought Ferkser did a pretty good job getting his face mask into some Cleveland Browns and keeping them out of the backfield. And I think that veteran piece is exactly what they're looking for. So the question then becomes, is it still a blocking problem or is it Patrick? Are there back and forth? Are there bits and pieces? From my point of view, I felt he left a couple of clean pockets or pockets that were clean enough for him to stand in early yesterday. I feel like he made some choices that were purely choices. They were not demands. They didn't have to be done. And that led to some incompletes, some question marks a couple of times, a couple into pressure, a couple of things like that. The quick game worked. This waiting stuff just isn't working still. I think that's on him.
It definitely is. You go back and watch specifically the Justin Watson long pass, and he's got Xavier Worthy open, crossing the field. And unless he makes and obviously we have to say this, unless the throw is bad or Worthy has a drop, it's an easy first down. It could have been something where it's a huge gain because all he had to do was beat his guy, and that side of the field was wide open. And maybe it's not a touchdown, but it's at least a big play, probably 20, 30 yards would be my guess. And it was an easy throw, and it should have been something that he should have seen because it was crossing his face. That's the other part of it that gets you is like I understand progressions and I get all that, but when you have something that should be crossing your face, you would think that you would see, oh, look, here's my first down. But yeah, the passing game was frustrating yesterday. He only went 50% on the field and didn't have a good passing day overall. And I'm sure he's arguing that touchdown to Worthy was a pass, not a run, but c'est la vie, it is what it is. You look at this, and I think when you go look at the blocking grades from PFF, and you and I both said PFF isn't perfect, right? But it gives us a frame of reference at least. So if we look at that, 13 hurries and 2 hits yesterday. Now, when Matt and I talked on Monday's show, there were a lot more hits, and I'd have to go back and look and see that data compared to what we're seeing with PFF. But the hurries, he had 8 hurries from Joe Tuney. You know what? A left guard playing out of position and playing left tackle
against arguably the best pass rusher in the league.
Yeah, but easily top 5. And wherever you want to rank Myles Garrett, he is easily a top 5. And I don't know, in some seasons he could be, or in some games he looks like he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. In some games he doesn't. Some games he doesn't have it, obviously, and that is what it is. But overall, Mahomes didn't get sacked. He got hit a ton. He took hits that he didn't need to take. He continues to try to hold on to the ball a little bit longer than he needs to at times. And I think that also is going to be a problem. But one of the things that we didn't really get to in the first segment that actually kind of plays into how this is going is Hollywood should be coming back this week. Now, whether or not that changes how the offense is going to look, I personally think it's going to, because I do know from what I saw at training camp and what it looked like, they had a huge package and a huge package of plays and a huge plan for Hollywood Brown. Mm-hmm. So getting him back should open up things. Now, the other thing, and Matt and I talked about this as well, the bonus of Hollywood not playing this entire season is Xavier Worthy has progressed way further than we thought he would go. He would. I'm not saying he's great, but he's playing better than he would have if he wouldn't have gotten all the snaps and gotten all the experience. He's still doing things that a rookie's, going to struggle with, but he's getting better on a weekly basis. And I do think that that's going to be big going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And for the record, it was 12 quarterback hits officially through the NFL. I don't know what PFF's looking at, but I
think they're probably putting the most of them on Mahomes in, if that's the case.
That'd be my guess as well. And it really doesn't matter because he ain't trying to get himself hit. I can guarantee you that.
Yep.
X's development, you're absolutely right. And that does leave quite a bit of what we talk about. A lot of playbook still hidden. They haven't seen. No one's seen Hollywood catch any passes from Patrick Mahomes yet in a regular season game. And so for playoff teams, they don't have any form of reference whatsoever. And that is something that I think if you're going to find a ray of sunshine in this, that is it, because no one's prepared. As tough as the Bills are playing, no one is prepared.
Yep. Nope. I agree with you completely. And I think that that's one of the big things going into this is the offense should be getting better with Hollywood coming back. You add him, and now Worthy is now a guy that has to be at best your third option, a wide receiver. And I would argue that in some scenarios, maybe he's your fourth, because I still think that they value what Justin Watson brings to this team, because it isn't necessarily the catches. The catches help, don't get me wrong, and Worthy has done that. But it's the small things that Watson does. Go back and watch, and I can't remember who they're playing, but his long run to get down into field goal range, Watson had 2 blocks on that specific play alone. It's those small things that don't really hit the stat sheet that nobody sees, that, or most people don't see, that are what makes Watson so valuable to this team. So it would not shock me for Watson to take a little bit of a step back with Brown coming in, but Worthy to take an even bigger step back. Because the other thing with Worthy is, one, his body is not built for the NFL yet, because he is so skinny and scrawny, and he stayed healthy. But taking some snaps off of him after what he's had to go through this season, because he wasn't expected to be that guy, I think could be big down the stretch as well and get him fresher for the playoffs.
Yeah. And maybe no one's doing more with their targets than Juju Smith-Schuster. So he's still back there as well. Yep. There's plenty. The guys that need to perform and getting Hollywood Brown jumping into the mix, unfortunately, comes at a cost. One that's been coming for a very long time. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is no longer a Chief. They waived him today. He's been through a lot. They've been helping him a lot, and he seemed, in my opinion, from his social media posts, very, very grateful. And everyone that I know that's had contact with the Clyde over the last few months has felt the same. So it's the end of an era. I don't think it's angry or a letdown. It's been a lot that you've gone through together. It just has come to the end of the road, in my opinion.
Yep. And it's possible he's back on the practice squad. We don't know. I mean, who knows? It's hard for me to think that somebody's going to bring him up or take him basically on his contract as is. So if he wants to stay in Kansas City, I can't imagine that they wouldn't want him back on the practice squad. But right now, it's a rosters game. It's a rosters number game. I mean, you have to have plenty of spaces, and they don't. I mean, that's the reality of it. And he hasn't played at all this season. He's been active every single game, so it's not a surprise that he's going to be the one that's going out the door. His entire contract was guaranteed, so he's still getting paid. So he could actually double dip if he came back and played on the practice squad, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Good for him. And I don't think, again, there's any animosity. Stranger things have happened. Let's see what does happen. It's all in the details for him, and it's all in the details for everybody else on this roster. We're going to have to check that out upon further review coming up next.
It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with a newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you absolutely love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max.
We have a lot for you here all week long as we get through this game on to the next two back-to-back Texans, Steelers, on up to Christmas Day. Don't miss it. We'll have all kinds of content like we always do, maybe at different times, but we'll still have the same stuff. So make sure you're with us, like, sub, hit the bell. On further review is where we dig a little bit deeper. And for me, I really want to take a look at who stood out. Tons on the defensive side of guys making plays. Chamari Connor really overshadowed with the Mahomes ankle is Chamari Connor's injury. Want to know where that's coming from. But in his absence, You have Trent McDuffie who can play nickel. Is probably best suited to nickel. Another guy that can play nickel is CRW. Made a big play on special teams and got a few more snaps on defense. And if you have to find a silver lining in this situation, I would take it that CRW is that silver lining, getting a little more playing time.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's a good thing for him. We need the young guys to get playing time, and don't forget they have Steven Nelson on the practice squad, who maybe is going to be somebody they're going to be activating in the future. I would imagine, and Matt and I kind of talked about this yesterday, that it is doubtful you see Connor this week. And if he doesn't play this week, I almost think it's probably doubtful he plays against the Steelers as well, because you just don't have enough time to get through the entirety of the concussion protocol. I mean, it's possible in theory, but 6 days is going to be tough. And if he can't clear it for the first week, can he clear it for the second? Maybe, but do you really want him coming back and going back into a situation where he's not even going to take any hits? Because I doubt they have a padded practice when you're only playing in 4 days after your last game. So it's a tough situation. I think you're probably losing it for 2 games, and that's very tough for Kansas City to face. This is a situation where they may have to go bring up a Steven Nelson. I don't think he'd be ready for this game against Houston, but you have to know he's got the Steelers circled on his calendar, and he wants to play in that game.
Yes, he does. And motivation is a big key in getting ready. So maybe that's enough. The guys backing him up will be the last line of defense. A lot of cover 2 played yesterday. Both Jaden Hicks, the rookie, as well as Brian Cook, the sophomore, got some things done. Is it redemption for Cook? Hasn't been playing as well this season when he's been asked to play, especially single high. But in cover 2, I think he's getting the job done. Obviously, made a nice play on the ball there. I'd argue it was probably not a throw. It was a Jameis throw. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
But in your eyes, does that make up for the big play? Make up for some of the subpar plays that he's had recently?
I think it's interesting because you look at, and I think Joseph Hefe actually put this out on X earlier, and I'll have to go look at it and see if I can retweet it from my X account. But it's interesting because there's a correlation between Brian Cook's snaps going down and Hicks's snaps going up. So I do think that they're trying to find more ways to get Hicks on the field, which is taking Cook off the field at times. And I think that kind of makes sense to an extent because he has had some subpar plays. There are some angle issues that you have. He's late getting into where he needs to be covering the back half of the field at times, which can really cost you, especially when you start talking about getting into these games where you're going up against, I think I saw the AFC 3rd ranked team, the 5th ranked team, and the 6th ranked team, all in the matter of the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. You can't have that. You can't have issues popping up on the back end, especially from a guy that has been one of your starters and somebody that knows the defense. It'd be different if it's a rookie coming in, but you can't have that from a guy that's basically a vet at this point.
I think that might be a little bit of a stretch, the vet thing, but that's fair. And the criticism is certainly warranted. I do think playing a few less snaps will help him reset a little bit. And I do think asking him to do things that he's more akin to doing. I said it last week, and I'll say it again, especially with Chamari a little bit beat up. They have every safety on their team right now is a box safety. They don't have center.
That's a problem.
Fielders. So the split concept, playing too high, honestly, I think they can get away with some 6 where it makes you look like too high and you shift it and you get a cornerback involved. There's a number of things you can do. But you got to keep playing that game. And I think this is the time where Steve starts to ramp up how he disguises his shells. And I think that is something for at least heady players like Brian Cook that they can adapt to and gain a little bit of advantage on the opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, you have to hope that it's going to be something that they can do and they can continue growing and going and getting better on defense because they're going to need it during the playoffs. You know, the other thing when you start looking at upon further review, we talk about the defense, flip it over and look at the offense. The play calling has got to get better, and I do think that was a big issue yesterday. But they have to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to continue attacking and trying to be an offense that's going to get 10 and 11 play scoring drives is going to be very hard, especially when you get into the playoffs when the defenses get better generally, other than the Buffalo Bills who don't know how to play defense. But the reality is you're not going to be able to get into a situation where you're going to be able to score on that kind of drive unless you're consistently hitting 4 or 5 yards. And the bigger problem is you can't come in, you can't take a 2-score lead or a 3-score lead and then throw the ball 3 times and do that multiple drives in a row and go 3 and out and take less than 30 seconds off in 2 different drives, because that just kills your defense, because they get gassed because they're out there all the time, and it kills your momentum on offense, and it kills your ability to run the ball. I understand they struggled at times with the run blocking, and I get that, and that's an issue. Dial something else up, make it a a lateral, or a end around or reverse or something. Do something a little bit different. Just don't go out there and try to pass the ball, especially when Patrick wasn't looking great yesterday. He was missing throws he should have hit.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
And I'm not just talking about the throws and I'm not just talking about the throws that he didn't take. I'm talking about the ones that he did take and he still missed.
Yeah, and that's the key. Like, you could at least throw it to the side of caution that you didn't throw given X situation. But when you're doing a mix of both, you can't really get away with that excuse. Other guys that performed well, kudos to the whole defensive line. Obviously, Charles Menahue coming through, starting to get a little bit more impact, not just energy, and I do think that that's important. Obviously, Karlaftis had a good day. Turk Wharton, not a ton of pressure, but he made the most of it. The question to me was, there was quite a bit of consternation about this pass rush front. Obviously, Cam Thomas was playing on the other side of the ball and did get some pressure. Let's be real about it, because they chose to walk away from him. I'm still a little salty about it, but hey, that's fine. But it's about Felix Anudike-Uzomah at this point, and reinvesting in him. Only got 9 pass rush snaps yesterday. I'm sorry, 7 pass rush snaps, 9 total. That's not enough if you're going to continue to get him to cycle in, especially with Menahue just coming off. Mike Dana was out there quite a bit. It just wasn't probably what you're looking for. So I think that this has to be revisited as well. So the whole name of the game is pressure. Pressure, pressure, pressure. And Chris Jones is Chris Jones. And yes, he made 3 quarterback hits, didn't get the sack. That's fine. But when you have guys making up for it, what's that?
Wharton played well too.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think FAU is somebody that they need to get that role figured out. And what it really comes down to is Menahue comes in and takes all the pass rush snaps, which I think part of what their thought process there is that they have to get him up and ready for the playoffs. And the only way to do that is to get him snaps. FAU's gotten a ton of snaps this year, but the problem is that then he's not going to be as ready to go for the playoffs as he would have been otherwise. To me, I would take Mike Dana off the field and put FAU in at times and just give him the opportunity to go get after the passer. I don't think you're going to lose anything from Dana. Dana's been here long enough. He knows what he's doing. He's going to step in. I think that FAU can get better with the more pass rush snaps that he sees, and his ability to work on his timing and his get off the ball, I think, are huge. So I do think that that's something that they need to try to work in a little bit more than they have.
I agree. And just keep doing what you're doing with Travis Kelce playing, 67 snaps? Noah Gray, over 40.
That's too many.
It is. But you got to keep the tight ends going. And I do like Ferkser. I do like Kupp. Kupp is a guy that I think will be part of this rotation in the future. But I want to see more snaps for him. I want to see some more snaps for Nico Remigio. I think there's opportunity there, especially now before Hollywood's back on the field. Even if he activates in practice this week, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to play in this game. So I do want a little bit of a shot for Remigio at this point. But keep churning it over is what I'm saying. Keep moving the ball around.
Yeah, and I think that's probably exactly what they're going to have to do. And I think that you look at this situation, I really wish they would have got less snaps for Travis Kelce, especially being up 3 scores for most of the game. I think that, or at least 2 scores for most of the game, you could have probably taken Kelce off the field for a little bit of it, especially considering most of those plays were going 3 and outs. So I get it. You need him out there. He is a big part of the offense. He is the offense in some ways. I get all that. And he's playing against Cleveland, and I understand that part of it too. But when you get away from the rush game, which they did, and you get away from being consistent and taking what the defense is giving you, which Mahomes has over the last couple of weeks, this is what we're going to get offensively. They're going to struggle. And Mahomes has to step up to get better. And it is partially on him. It's not all on him. Obviously, he's taking hits. He's getting shots that he wished he wasn't getting. but he needs to take the shorter ball, be okay with it, and know that you're going to live to fight another day. And maybe you can dial up some of those deep balls to Hollywood Brown or to Xavier Worthy in the coming weeks. Just work on trying to get the ball out and getting the ball out quick and take less hits. Because I do think if he plays this week, he's not going to be able to run like you want him to. He's not going to be able to move in the pocket. He becomes a statue, almost more of a statue type quarterback in the pocket, a guy that isn't going to be able to move around very well and do different things. So you got to get quick plays going this weekend.
Yeah, it's about the right calls as much for Andy as it is for Patrick making decisions. We're going to talk more in depth with it tomorrow with Matt Derrick. We will definitely go through the rest of our process as we get you ready for Saturday's game against the Houston Texans. Hope you guys are ready for it. Hope you're getting ready for Christmas as well. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell. Check out all of our sponsors, especially that ice shaker. That really comes in handy. So thank you for being with us. Thanks for spending your time. When this time of year gets a little bit hectic, we'd just like to say thank you one more time for spending your time with us. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.